hear me, clap. If you can hear me, clap twice. Great. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Jenny Christian and I'm the farm manager at Farming Falmouth. I love this organization and its mission and feel like the luckiest person in the world a lot of the time when I get to claim this as my office. So I feel really excited to show people that aren't necessarily our volunteers, but people in the community, because as soon as you guys see what's going on, I really hope you tell everybody. Because my big hope in all of this garden and this sort of type of agriculture kind of spreading is that more people feel confident growing food and starting where they are. And so one of the things I really like to do before getting started is find out kind of where are we in the gardening sphere? Do we have like master gardeners? Raise your hand if you're a master gardener. I'm not even a master gardener. Come on, it's okay. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of permaculture. Okay. Permaculture. Raise your hand if you have a couple raised beds and are just getting going. Raise your hand if you've been gardening all your life. Even a little, as a kid with your parents, that counts. All right. Well, okay, so we have a range. And my teaching style is ask. If you're like in that moment, like that is not making sense, it's not clicking, just ask, because we're here and for that reason, like we want you to leave with your questions answered. The time for this workshop says 10:30 to 1. Not all of you are going to want to stay for the end, which is the hands-on part. So we're going to do some talking, we're going to do some technical talking, and then we're going to go do some action. Because talking about planting tomatoes is great, but what are you going to learn from talking when you can go hold, see, touch, smell? So we'll do the talking and then we'll get out into the field. I feel like once we get out there, a lot of questions pop up because you're actually seeing it. And it makes more sense, I think, once you're seeing it. So this is Warren Collins.
Hi, Warren. Hi, everybody.
Warren's a master gardener, a plant pathologist, and an expert in disease and pests, and is super awesome to teach with because we have different styles. She used to be a farmer, I used to farm commercially, but we grew very differently, so we have different opinions, which is kind of helpful because there's not one way to garden. There's principles that we have absolutely in common that we're like, that is it. So if you see us agreeing, then that's probably a good principle to stick with, right?
I think we agree on more things than we don't.
Exactly.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's more technique and stuff that's not gonna make or break your growing season. So I usually start with a soil health spiel because farmers in my generation, our colleges are hitting the soil drum really hard. Like we're not really focused on the plants nearly as much as we're focused on the soil health. So when you put your energy into the soil, what happens is miraculous because the soil is divinely designed to do exactly what it does. We as humans have come in our extractive way and planted and pulled and planted and pulled nutrient after mineral out of that soil. And now it's kind of, it's a little dead, if you will. So the soil focus helps everything else. So if you have good, healthy soil, your plant has a defense mechanism. That's the immune system of the plant. So if your soil is intact, your plants can fight disease better. If your soil is intact, your cell walls of your plants are tougher and less appetizing to insects. So, I mean, those are the two main problems, right? Is like pest, disease, and then, growth. So we're, NPK, right? NPK, which is so important. Don't get me wrong. But there are so many micros and minerals and things that the plant also needs to thrive. I know it's like a thing we're not allowed to say anymore, but diversity is key to everything surviving. So we're gonna have a hard time writing grants now. Sorry, couldn't help it. So soil health can't be understated. So there's some principles that you want to guide you that are super, super basic. And there's a great way to remember what they are without being like, what was the 1, 2, 3? Reference the forest. So anytime you are in your garden and you're like, am I doing this soil health principle right? Walk over to your little edge of your property or go into the woods and just look. The ground is covered. There's no bare soil, nothing. If it's not mulched, there's something growing, right? And there's a diversity of heights, right? There's low ground covers, there's little shrubbies, there's trees, right? There's a lot of diversity going on. You're so welcome. I almost got that before this started too. Because the forest is the ultimate soil generator. So it's just got everything right going on. If you go in there and you dig down a little and you just harvest a little of that, that is what you're going for in your garden, right? You don't want this sandy, dry, like slipping through your hands, or you don't want this crumbly, dry top, right? Because it's just not a nice warm blanket that you want when you're kind of trying to do stuff, right? So you want that nice blanket. So you'll notice out here, almost nothing's bare. And that was like that all winter. And you will notice the other benefit is that the weeds don't exist here. But this was a field of weeds. It was an entire field of mugwort when we started. And if anybody knows what mugwort is, it's aggressive. We tried everything from tillage to cover crop to herbicides. Finally went with the organic method of tarping. And tarping is what got us this far. And we've probably spent 6 hours total this season weeding. Look around, I mean, fine, they're there, but they're so minimal, they're not overwhelming. And a lot of that is because we have covered the soil thick with either compost or wood chips, and then on top of that, mulch. So the weed seeds are down below. And so in conventional agriculture, when your tillage happens, every time you flip that soil back up on its head, you're reintroducing 100 million new weed seeds to germinate now. So they hide and they have long life cycles. Weed seeds are nature's defense mechanism, right? It's the scab of the wound of the earth, right? So if soil gets disturbed, people get mad, weeds come in, right? But that's their job, right? And when certain weeds will come in and tell you exactly what that soil is like. So dandelions show up, that's compacted. Plantain shows up, it's wet. So there's just indicators with weeds. They're not your enemy. They're telling you something. So I want to like encourage a little more observation in your gardening practices. And remember, every time you flip, every time you till, you're bringing new things to the surface. So you got to cover it really quick because sunlight germinates those weed seeds. It's not even the moisture. So just be noted that the more you layered upward, right? No-till, we're just layering up. We're fluffing and layering upward. So you were building soil like the forest does, right? Worms do their thing, and the worms are your best friend. They're like employee of the month forever. So, I mean, every time you put cardboard down or a mulch down, right? And if you want to pull that back, who's there doing all that work, right? The worms. And they can't be understated because what they do is they're coming up, eating, pooping, going down, coming up. And what they're doing is they're creating water and air space for your plants to thrive in. So they're loosening up that soil for you, they're fertilizing that soil for you, and aerating it all at the same time. So worms are a good thing. You always find those in the forest. If you're not finding those in your garden, add more organic matter. They're hungry and they will show up. So you got to keep organic matter and things for the worms, the bacteria, and the fungi to consume to stay in your soils. Does that make sense? Any confusing bits about that?
What's the difference between wood chips and mulch?
So wood chips are just a form of mulch, and some people say that they rob nitrogen from the soil and say don't use them. I don't agree with that. There's principles that I use so that it doesn't happen, even if it is true. But I really like wood chips, especially in walkways, or, you know, and the thing with wood chips is you can charge them up really easily by peeing on them, by fertilizing them with fish emulsion. And so a lot of times in my home garden, what we'll do is I have an 8-year-old, so I just tell him to go to the bathroom on the wood chips. Because if you give them some nitrogen, right, they're not pulling it out of your soil. And so it's got a little locked up in those chips. So it just helps that mulch be more beneficial to your garden. In the walkways here, we have like 6 inches to a foot of wood chips in between every growing space. There is no robbed nitrogen, you will see. And it's that decomposition cycle that helps with that as well, because underneath there's actively decomposed chips. And so if you add on top, all the mycelium that's been presently actively eating all those chips are going straight up into those new chips because you're just feeding them. And then you get more mycelial action. It's really just all beneficial. Yeah.
I had wood chips from last year. Should I actually get rid of that and then put on new ones, or should I just leave them?
I love aged chips. Like that can go right on your bed as mulch. If you don't have straw or something like seaweed or whatever. I use second-year chips for mulch sometimes because it's mostly broken down and it's got still has some holding. You know, it's still going to cover the soil, but it's got a lot of good stuff going on it.
Wood chips can also alter the pH of your soil. Mm-hmm. So depending on what kind of trees the wood chips come from, they can alter the pH of your soil. So you just have to be aware of that. Mm-hmm. They can make it more acidic. So, and we already have acidic soil here. So you may want to check your pH. If you use a lot of wood chips in your plot, you might want to check the pH. I think wood chips are great. We use them in our pathways. We use straw for mulching around plants though, because of that pH change. Now, when they're 2 years old or something, it's a little different. They're more decomposed and everything, and it's probably better. But then when they also don't work as well, you know, when they're older. So for mulch, you know, for keeping weeds down and stuff. So.
What was the question about straw?
The straw, you just buy it. What kind of straw?
Yeah, don't buy hay.
Yeah, don't buy hay.
Straw. You want straw. We just got some at the you know, the place across from Municus.
Wacoit Feed and Grain.
Wacoit Feed and it's more of a cut up straw for putting grass seed down and everything, but they run out of it. I mean, if that's the only place we've found it. It's gotten expensive just like everything else.
Yeah, Soars sells the bag stuff too.
Soars does, yeah.
Yeah, the bag stuff is great. It's just bagged in plastic and trucked and stuff. So if you can find alternative, great. But if you have a small garden, that stuff is gold. I mean, that stuff will cover you. Like we use it sometimes if we have a really dense planting and we need fine mulch to get in between. I'll buy a bag of that once in a while just because I got stuff to do.
Yeah, we just got a bag of it, and I did our tomatoes, and I did our eggplant and peppers all around it.
Yeah.
So
mulching is even more important with tomatoes than almost anything. So we'll definitely talk a little more about it.
We'll talk about how mulching can help.
I was going to ask about algae, but if it's as mulch, but if you cover it later, we can.
Like seaweed?
Seaweed?
Yeah. Seaweed and kelp, great.
It's a great mulch.
Great.
There is not too much. Okay.
No.
No, it's a great mulch. And you
because
know,
unlike the straw, it's putting nutrients in the soil.
Yeah, it's very good.
Minerals, nutrients. So I find that the seaweed does blow away quickly. I like to mulch straw over my seaweed. Like I use the seaweed almost as an amendment, tight to my plants, and then I do around that with straw, just because I don't usually have enough because it's a hauling it out of the ocean.
You got to go get it, right? The other thing about
When you
seaweed,
see it, get it. It's pretty much like
when
bring a
we
bucket to
moved
the
here
beach.
from-
You know, if you bring one bucket home at a time, you'll be crushing it soon.
when we
You'll
moved
have
from
a
New
whole
York, I
pile
wondered
stinking up your
if
backyard.
you had to rinse the seaweed because of the salt. You do not. I talked to our extension educator about that because I thought, wow, do we have to rinse the seaweed? And he said, no, there's no problem with the salts.
It's easier
Either
to haul
one.
dry.
Yeah. I mean, you go to the beach and, you know, get it. And
It doesn't matter if it's the poppers or the.
no. You want the I don't know the scientific names of the different ones, but you want that stuff that looks like shredded paper.
Okay, yes.
That's the one you want.
It's the easiest to use. You can use others, but they're not as plentiful. Like Huey's got a big old pile of kelp right now, you know, and so people are mulching with kelp because it's there and it's available and it's going to do good things for the soil, but it's going to be a little harder to use, just, you know, but it's going to be cool.
It's going to decompose a little more.
I'm sure you could if you had like something you wanted to yuck up, because it's going to be wet, you know, maybe not fully dry.
They can run over with a lawnmower or something.
So Ron just brought up leaf mulch, because you cannot forget oak leaves and leaves in general. Even if you have strawberries, pine needles. I mean, you don't have to get fancy with mulches. Some things like acidity, like strawberries and blueberries, they do well with pine needle mulch or pine chip mulch, which tends to be a little more acidic than, say, hardwoods, which can be taken over by mycelium and help balance that pH out. But you kind of, you know, it's different. Hardwoods, different. If you have leaves in the fall and you can run over with a lawnmower, that is like one of my favorite mulches. Or just making a compost pile that sits there and then you top dress with it in the spring. Oh, so dark, so black.
Clever method for chopping up any sort of mulch that you may have. Probably works for just about anything from kelp to pine needles. But if you have a barrel and you use your weed whacker,
Oh yeah.
kind of churn it up like an immersion blender.
Oh,
I've seen
interesting.
people do straw like that.
Mowed weed footer
I've never heard that technique.
water
Yeah.
in the summer and it gets old and then you can't contain it. But it, like the barrel and the weed whacker. Oh wow. Try that.
Farm hacks. Yeah. Any soil health mulchy questions? Yeah.
Somebody said like that maple leaves are alkali and oak are acidic.
Probably.
And we do have maple leaves, and I did run it through the mower, and in the spring it did look great. So is that okay to put under things? Somebody said it might be too compact.
No.
The chopped leaves shouldn't end up compact.
It's good.
Like, especially, like, you know, because one little fluff, they're going to be blowing away if you're not careful. Yeah, that's the other thing is blowing them blowing away. Like I'm like the weirdo that like mulches, like waters my mulch the moment I lay it down. I'm like hosing it down. I'm like, stay. It's Cape Cod. It's windy. You gotta, you know, work at the elements.
And that straw you buy is very fluffy. You
Oh,
have to
that'll
like,
fly.
you know, if you've ever used it. In fact, I got to go check mine, see if it's
Yeah.
there.
If you've never seen what we're talking about, I do have a bag coming later because I wanted to show in case anybody hasn't felt, touched, seen it. And then we do have straw coming to just to see. But we get that in Barnstable. Barnstable Pet and Feed store has straw. It's like $15 a bale though. It's awful.
Yeah, well, this other stuff's 27 or something.
Yeah.
My husband was shocked. He came home and he said, "You know what I paid for this?"
It used to be like 13. Like it's,
Yeah. Tariffs. Anyway.
that's not USA straw. Really?
So
That
you want me to? I was going to talk about what's going on in my garden. You want to do that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna
Okay.
mulch soil questions. Yeah.
Oh.
Horse manure. I've seen in someone's garden every fall they just throw down a bunch of horse manure through all the whole garden.
It's great.
It'll compost in place. No, you because unless you have it fully composted. But if you're putting fresh on, it's got to be in the fall. Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
put a ton of composted manure on this spring on our garden, but it was unusually composted. I don't know if you saw that big pile Lenny had over there, but He went and got it at that place on. I don't think they have an operating farm anymore. Near Sippawisset Road there.
Smithfield Farms.
There's
Oh,
a farm
no.
there, you
It's-
know.
Oh,
Huh?
oh, you guys are, yeah.
that's
by,
you?
by Ransom?
Horse manure, if anybody needs
Oh,
it.
that's you. Oh,
By the yard.
oh. Well, my husband came and got a whole bunch of stuff. So
Shearwater Farm on Shearwater Way off Woods Hole Road. You can't miss us.
yeah.
Well, yeah, you can.
It's-
Look for us.
And it's good stuff too. We've used it in a pinch last year. These guys dropped a dump truck.
Can I share some stuff about our soil? 'Cause
Yeah.
I'm only a fourth-year farmer, and I feel like after 4 years, I don't know shit. Literally. But we're trying to silage tarp our piles as much as possible. Todd is a tractor. We turn them several times a year. We have used just about everything as mulch in the last 4 years. I buy lots of hay bales for my commercial accounts in the fall, and I just use them in a chicken coop first.
Yep.
And then I move them out to a pile, I let them get rinsed off, and then I throw it all down as mulch. So we have hay, straw.
I honestly have used hay
bags of
before.
chopped straw, hemp bedding, wood shavings from the sawmill, just about anything as
Yeah.
mulch. We definitely have some weeds that are
But,
indicative of
yeah.
what we've got going on, but
You-
mulch is mulch.
You can speak to the successes of mulch.
And the failures of mulch, and the questions of mulch, but
The thicknesses and it's a learning game of like how thick do I go. And I used to make beds with my chicken coop stuff. So we'd use really cheap straw in the chicken coop and we would let it get like yucky, like more yucky than we actually wanted because we knew we had a purpose for it. And you just scoop it out in like sheets and just lay it on the grass. Springtime, it's fully perfect. The grass is gone. It's a cool way to use those two, resources. You had one more question.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, so when we set up our beds this year, we did, they're very tall, and we did hugelkulture. So
Nice.
We did some wood from our property in the bottom.
Good.
And I wondered if you could speak to, you were talking about the nitrogen robbing that the wood chips do, and do you think we need to worry about that with the wood? Because, I mean, it's very well-seasoned wood. It's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
on our property.
It'll probably be fine then, especially if you have a lot of biology on top of it and it's like working through it. It's like nature will balance itself out most of the time, especially if you've given it a lot of different sizes. So it's about the diversity of sizes. So that you get like a nice big log that kind of slowly breaks down and then all the sticks are like 2-3 year breakdowns and then, yeah.
If you have any questions about pH, I mean, the only thing I would recommend is that you take the pH of your beds. And Cooperative Extension does pH testing. The Master Gardeners do it at the Horticultural Clinic. If you go on the Master Gardener website, you'll see you can send in your thing. I think it's $3 or $5 or something. But UMass in Amherst, if you send in soil samples, I think for different prices, and you go on their website, they'll do a full thing about your soil. They'll give you your nitrogen, your potassium, your, everything, your phosphorus in your soil, the pH. They'll tell you if you tell them what crops that you want to grow there, they'll tell you different additives, how much fertilizer, they'll tell you how fertile it is. It's well worth doing once in a while. I wouldn't do something like that every year because it's a little more expensive. But go on the UMass, and I should have written that down. But if you're UMass Amherst, and they'll do this soil testing for you.
Are those pH testing things, the testers that you can use at home?
They're okay. I have one of those probes you put in for pH. I've always wondered about them, and so back when I worked in the lab, I worked for Ciba-Geigy for many years doing research. I would use mine at home, and then I'd bring in a soil sample, and I'd see, and it was pretty close. It was pretty close. There's things you want to do with those probes. You want your soil damp. You don't want it completely dry because it works by ionization, and that's how pH works. So yeah, I have one of those. And you can also get little soil test kits. You put your soil in with water and then you put your reagents in, and yeah. But, depends how sciencey you are.
She works for marine chemistry.
She's a little bit smart.
Anyway.
All right.
Jenny,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah,
one
yeah.
question on that. So, if you're not tilling your soil, right, are you just putting compost on top and then planting into the compost?
So if you're if you're starting from scratch, or
Like I have a raised bed
Mhm.
from last year,
Yeah.
and I haven't done anything this year.
So I would find something like this. I mean, it's raised bed, so maybe like a short-handled turning fork even.
Okay.
You want to get in there and just rotate it. So when I'm doing bed prep, this is all I do. I just lean and lift, and I go, whoop, and then I back up. We're not flipping.
Okay.
So you really want to fluff. It's all because the worms and the air, you're getting air and oxygen down here. But when you're got a raised bed, it's a little different. But then as soon as you disturb, compost. Finished good compost that doesn't have weeds in it to top dress a couple inches. And then if you mulch on top of that, you'll have a great season. This is the only thing we use for bed prep. I don't want to get too deep into bed prep because it could go on, and we really want to cover disease, trellising, tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, those things. But when we started this field, it was just a grass, weed-filled field. It was very much old tractor. It used to be the family's garden. It had been used a little bit with tillage and tractors, and so there was like a hard pan about a foot down that we had to break up, but most of it was super compacted, and all we did was this tool. And it's, you know, to so like the difference in 2 years of no-till versus your hard lawn is drastic. It changes so quickly. And this year, Nina's my farm assistant. Say hi. It felt like a dream this spring when we got here because it was just like sunk. It just felt so easy compared to last year. Each row took us, or the first year probably took us 35, 40 minutes almost every bed, because you're slamming this thing, trying to get it all the way down to break up that compaction. Because if you're a plant root and you're trying to go down, imagine, right? If you can't plunge your human fist down in it, how is a plant root gonna get in there? And so it's like, and then we kill all the dandelions that might have loosened it up for us, but it's like, so just keep your eyes on density. And if you feel like, if you can't even get in there, just think about the plants. So you just wanna fluff every year. Fluff, compost, mulch, soil test.
I want to say one thing. I've been around a long time, all right? I'm 75 years old. I've been in the ag community with farms. I worked in ag. I've seen a lot of farms. I've grown a lot of things. This is amazing. You're not going to see anything quite like this anywhere else. To see the health of this garden, I just walked through there today and I said to Jenny, this is amazing. I mean, it's like a master lesson in a garden and a plot. So believe me. I hope I didn't embarrass you too much, but
No,
anyway.
you made me blush a little.
Yeah, well, I want to talk about we have two plots over. We had a 5-acre farm in upstate New York. We had chickens, we had meat birds, and we sold at market. We sold at 2 different markets. We sold in Kinderhook, New York, and we sold in Philmont, New York. We sold in Stuyvesant, 3 different ones at different times. So not on a large scale like this. We had a big greenhouse, but we sold, I don't know, probably, it wasn't our living. It was sort of our hobby, retirement hobby, whatever. So we have 2 plots over here, 2 10 by 30 plots. And I'm going to tell you the problems we've had this year in our plots, because I think you can all relate to them. The first thing I would say is our strawberries are getting mutilated by slugs. All right. I don't know how many of you have strawberries, but this weather has brought the slugs out. Not only the slugs, but there's a fungus, a mold called botrytis. It's commonly called gray mold, which goes after strawberries. And this is the kind of weather to stir up gray mold. The slugs, here's what you can do for the slugs. Sluggo, or any product like Sluggo.
We'll pass it around.
Sluggo is a trade name. You'll see it everywhere. There's Sluggo and Sluggo Plus. Sluggo Plus also has spinosad in it, which will control the earwigs. Regular Sluggo just will control the slugs. I usually buy the Sluggo Plus 2 for 1, right?
Yeah.
So it works, but once it rains on it, they're pellets. They're little pellets. It's safe, it's organic, safe for pets. It's very effective, but you have to reapply. If you don't see any of the pellets around, you need to reapply. So that's the first thing. As far as the botrytis is concerned, if you're growing organically, it's very, do you know why you don't see very many organic strawberries in the market? Because it's very hard to grow organic strawberries and ship them, because the botrytis will start to degrade them. So there is Serenade is a product you can use. I don't know if you have any here.
I don't think I have Serenade. No.
Yeah, Serenade is a product that will be effective against the botrytis. It's a organic material. It's a bacillus species that's also effective. So if you buy the Serenade for your strawberries, it's also very effective on your tomatoes. Serenade is there's 2 things that can help you with leaf diseases on tomatoes. One of them is Serenade, and I'll talk about the other one later. So strawberries, we've had problems. The other thing we've had problems, our eggplant have gotten ravaged by flea beetles. Who has flea beetles? Flea beetles are the scourge of poor eggplants. You know, if they can't survive, if they're big enough, these are pretty big, maybe they can survive the scourge of flea beetles. Spinosad, again, is the product you want to look for, Spinosad. It's the active ingredient in a number of products that are organically grown products, and that will help with the flea beetles. The flea beetles will also go on your arugula, on your mustard greens, and they'll go on your tomatoes. You don't have to worry so much on the tomatoes. They don't seem to, you'll see little tiny holes. That's what you see if you know you have flea beetles, tiny little holes.
It's like the Swiss cheese of damage.
Yeah, and on tomatoes, I don't spray for them on tomatoes because I'm not really that worried about them being on the tomatoes. So flea beetles. The Colorado potato beetles are out now. They've had their first hatch. And it was interesting because it was to the day of when they hatched last year. Because I had emailed Dick over there about
When
the
you saw
potato
them last
beetle.
year?
It was the same day. Because I hadn't emailed them in a year. But
Yeah.
anyway, so...
while you're talking about it, will you talk about degree days and insect
Yeah,
stuff? Because I
yeah.
feel like it's a complex thing to get compared to like our 9 months of birth.
So it was interesting that the degree days were about the same. So potato beetles, they will go first to your potatoes. Who grows potatoes? Anybody? Okay. So if you grow potatoes, you're going to have to learn how to control potato beetles.
How you doing, bud?
They lay little yellow eggs on the underside of the leaves. They also go to your eggplant, which is not good. And potato beetles are around all season. They kind of go, come the end of August, but they have different hatches. So you'll see a bunch of them, and then you won't see them for a while. And then you'll see another bunch of them. So they keep having different hatches. You need to learn how to control the potato beetles. Again, organically, spinosad or spinosad, however you pronounce it. And something called Bacillus thuringiensis. BT is its abbreviation, BT. One controls the adults, one will control the the eggs and the larva hatching. I usually do a cocktail of both of them when I spray my my eggplants, you know, to get them. I don't grow potatoes over here because of the pressure from the potato beetles. And a lot of people stop growing potatoes over here because of that.
Yeah.
All right, the next thing. What else did I plant in that I have had trouble with? Oh, I planted some zinnias. I think that they're getting eaten by some probably earwigs, maybe the slugs. So I also put some sluggo down near my zinnias.
And the thing about sluggo is a lot of times once the plants get far enough, you can stop because they're strong and they're higher up,
Yeah.
and so the damage isn't worth, you know, bothering about. But when they're young, they could just get decimated, and it's worth it. Strawberries too.
Yeah.
So worth it.
And cutworms, I don't know if anybody's had cutworms or know what they are. They're a little past now, but if you plant in May, beginning of May or whatever, the cutworms come, and they're the worst. You have your little plants, and what do? They just cut it off right at the thing and leave the plant there. So they don't even eat the plant. They just cut it off. So I hate cutworms.
Just vindictive.
Yeah, they're probably not so much around anymore. They're a little grub, and they do that. Well, did they take it with them, or did they just leave it there? The rabbits will actually eat the plant. Yeah. I'm trying to think what other problems we've had. That's about it so far, but we'll have more.
Yeah, I was
Not
about
to
to
worry, not to worry.
I was about to say not yet, but the cucumber beetles are so bad here that I've stopped growing cucumbers and zucchini and stuff here.
What?
We'll still grow our winter squash here this year, but I had almost like zero luck with zucchini and cucumbers last year, and it's the pressure, right?
It's weird though, they don't bother yellow squash
Yeah.
as much as they do the zucchini. Even though they're both summer squash, they'll go after the yellow squash. But the problem with cucumber beetles is there's very little organic controls for cucumber beetles. Diatomaceous earth, but it's very hard to control them organically. So I don't grow cucumbers here or zucchini either. I grow them at home in pots. I have these big pots, and I have trellises, and I grow cucumbers there. I grow the small cucumbers there. And zucchini I grow at home too. I try yellow squash here, and it's okay. I mean, the beetles will get on it, but not as bad. So.
How about the squash borer?
Oh,
Vine borer.
okay. So if you grow squash, you know that everything's going along great, and then maybe around mid to late July, your plant's starting to look sad. And if you look at where the
neck.
where it goes into the soil, right where the stem is there, and you look down, it looks like a little sawdust happened. And they're squash borers. They're a moth that lays eggs at the base there, and they lay their eggs into the stem, and then they eat the plant from inside out, and your plant goes down. I'm sure you've all seen it with your zucchini. There's not a whole lot of controls. You can go in with a knife and dig them out. I've always heard that. I don't know anyone who's actually done it. I've tried to do it. It's hard though. You've got to time it right. You've got to get in there and dig them out. Does it work for
I
you?
don't dig it out. I just kill them in place, and then I wrap it.
Yeah.
So I just slice right through them, through the stem.
Yeah.
And I see where they clearly are. And then they're dead, and then I just wrap it up in foil or pantyhose.
Oh, okay. Do you
whatever.
take them out?
I don't take them out. They just die right there.
If
The
you
plant's fine. I grew pumpkins last summer. For the
really,
first time,
huh?
And the squash vine borer got my first round of them, so I had to replant.
Yeah.
And then I saw the squash vine borer, and then I was looking up methods of way to do it, and I just take an X-Acto knife, just slice through right where I see. You can see it. It's unmistakable. They're disgusting. And then I just wrap it, and they were fine.
So right at the stem, like you would take a knife and go
But I don't cut it all the way through. I just cut it from the top in. I know
right
that I cut through
horizontally on
I
one
know that I
side.
cut through the body of the borer.
And they die. Why?
They die right there.
Because it's open.
Because
I
they got cut them in half.
Oh, you cut them in.
She's cutting the
okay.
stem, but also the culprit.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
And then I wrap it up to kind of like bandage it up, and it worked.
Wow, that's something. See,
That's
who did I just say I learned something every day myself? So,
pantyhose that I got for free.
but the other,
it's the barrier.
Like a bandage.
Yeah. Some
the
people,
other thing you hear is you go in and you dig them out, and I'm like, oh, okay. I don't think I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that, but
I mean,
whatever. Yeah.
some people too, like I've heard of, like they've tried peat pots, and you know how peat pots, if you don't fill them all the way, you get this like dry edge on the top. If you bust open the bottom of that peat pot and make sure that's really well done in, and you have a little ring of dry, it can almost, gotta be careful because it can dry your plant out, but that ring sometimes can stop.
That also helps with cutworms.
Yeah, because the cutworms got to get to the stem.
They have to get there.
And sometimes that Dixie cup or that whatever you've put around that stem is enough to keep them off. They'll just go to the next one and they'll just keep walking, you know?
So just for me, when I grew the pumpkins, and I got 9 pumpkins off of one plant, and it took over a third of my raised bed, it wasn't just at the stem. It was any part where the stem, the vine, touched and started making more roots. There were borers
Yes.
all along.
Yeah.
It wasn't just at the stem. So I had to do that multiple times, but my plant was fine.
Surgical.
That's great.
Oh yeah, you can, like she said, it's like little orange dust. It's like crusty, and you're like, and you can see it. It's like a white little clump.
I'm gonna talk about the arsenal of organic controls you should probably have in your garage or wherever. The first one is diatomaceous earth, which comes in many different forms. It's also used in swimming pools for filters. Do not use that. You want food grade diatomaceous earth. The diatomaceous earth that comes in is not what you want to use. You want to get, some that's made for organic control. This is helpful for lots of things. Is it an incredibly effective control? Not so much, but it helps. And to be honest, having worked in commercial, for a commercial, conventional company that makes chemicals, organic controls are always a little tougher to use as being effective, but they're much safer. So what I would use this for, it's effective against aphids sometimes. It's effective against what other things? I said flea beetles. It can help with slugs. Yeah, you sprinkle it on. So this one I would recommend. The other thing I would recommend is the Sluggo of some kind. This is Captain Jack's called Slug Magic, but you can get Sluggo. There's lots of different makes of it. You just want the slug control. It's very effective. It's one of the most effective organic pesticides I know of. It works.
You got a lot going on. And I don't
If it has the spinosad in it, yes.
I can guess whether I was or not in that moment.
Yes, so you would want Sluggo Plus, or this probably has spinosad in it
We'll
too.
probably be wrapping up and stuff. He's coming here.
I'll probably leave with him.
No, this one doesn't have the spinosad. So the Sluggo Plus does. And this other one I have, there's another, it wasn't Captain Jack's, it was another one. Similar, they've used the same logo look,
Put that on the soil or on the plant?
You sprinkle it around. So my strawberries, so slugs hide in mulch. They love all this, these pathways. And they hide, and then at night they maneuver out to your food, their food, and then they go back. So one of the things you can do is also surround your patch of strawberries or whatever you're trying to control, put some in. But when you sprinkle this on, it goes on your leaves. You want to knock the leaves off because you want it down in your soil level. So you'll see when you just knock it off. It's not going to hurt your plant, but they don't eat your leaves. They're after the strawberries. So you want to kind of surround it. I put it around where the mulch is there. Neem oil, very effective against a lot of things.
Yeah.
What do you use it for?
Caterpillary type things is what that's
Yeah,
what I end up having the problems with a lot.
It's good. It does work well I've used it for aphids. In the fall, you get aphids on if you grow Brussels sprouts or kale. I don't know if you've ever had your kale go into the fall and the aphids are all over it, right? The cold weather, they like that. It comes on. The neem oil will help with that. So will the diatomaceous earth. Pyganic. This is a very effective against flea beetles. Trying to think what else. It can be effective against cucumber beetles, I think.
It's the only one I've been able to have any luck
It's
with.
expensive though. This is a concentrate. Pyganic.
It's a pyrethrin base.
It's pyrethrin base, and some of the pyrethrin base are not organic. But for a home gardener, this was I'm sure this was very expensive. Probably $40, $50. I don't know if it's worth, it's worth it for Jeny, and it lasts year after year if you store it right. But I don't know, at a certain point you have to decide how much you want to spend on your garden. We all know that. We all know that rabbit hole, right?
Yeah. Cost-benefit analysis.
We all know that thing.
And they sell smaller concentrate. So if you have your own squirt bottles, a lot of times they do come in littler chunks because you need a little bit. I mean, this is like an ounce per gallon kind of thing. So I got this much because I got that much, but you guys can get away with a little bottle.
And you could share with a friend. You could go in with a friend and buy stuff,
How rebellious.
I really like this product. It's
Monterey.
I have a big thing of it, and it seems to really last a long time. Is this a concentrate? Yeah. And here it is right here. See, spinosad. That's the active ingredient in Monterey insect spray. They were the first ones to come out with spinosad for home gardeners and stuff like that. It was just commercially available to big farmers and stuff. But I like this product a lot.
It's like a spiral.
And it's pretty reasonably priced. And it's kind of a weird name, Monterey Garden Insect Spray, but basically the active ingredient is spinosad. And this is what you want for your potato beetles, right? And other things. It controls beetles. The other thing,
oh, here, pass it around.
oh, sorry, I didn't know. Sorry. Over here. Why don't you pass it around? Pass it around. Yeah. Sorry. All right, I'm going to talk about tomatoes and tomato early blight and septoria control on tomatoes. Early blight, which is an alternarious species, that's the name of the fungus, and septoria are both very similar kinds of fungi. They're fungi imperfecti. That's nothing you need to know. I'm just showing you how smart I am. But so yeah. So anyway, I took a lot of mycology courses in college. So in fact, I thought I was going to be a mycologist till I don't think it suited me. But anyway, so
Probably doesn't pay.
you're going to get leaf diseases on your tomatoes. Now, if you're growing your tomatoes in a new spot that nobody's ever grown tomatoes before, you're going to say, oh, I don't have any problems with, my tomatoes, blah,
I'm
blah,
great
blah,
at
blah,
growing
blah, blah.
tomatoes.
You just wait a couple years, you will. And what the problem with the tomatoes and why there's a cycle is it's on your leaf, you get the mold on your leaf, the leaf spot, and then the leaves drop off, and what do? They're the inoculum, and that's a term for plant pathologists. It's not that difficult to know what it means. It inoculates, next year, it inoculates your tomatoes. Now, mulching can help with that. You can heavily mulch and then those spores can't get up and do it. But here's the controls you need if you want to try to keep your tomatoes going longer. How many people's tomatoes went down in August and you wondered why? They just kind of died, right? So there's two products you use. One is a copper, and I'm trying to think of the trade names for them. What are some of the trade? Do you have copper there?
This one
Is that copper?
is based fungicide, does it?
What's that?
Rayleigh.
Yeah, but that's not.
Nope, not the same.
That's expensive too, though.
Yeah.
It's really expensive.
It works.
For a home gardener, because I mean,
this is what I can get
like
at
I have some
farm supply.
Yeah.
This isn't what you can get.
Yeah, and some things are don't come in a, you know, you need a sprayer for concentrate, whatever. It just depends to you all how much you want to get into that, how big you want to, you know, what it means to you, whatever. So copper is very effective as an organic spray against early blight and septoria. But here's the rub. You need to apply it carefully. It is a contact, it works by contact. Very few, in fact, none that I can think of, there are none. No organic sprays are systemic. In other words, they don't soak into your plant and then they continue to work. So you want to, where have I here? I just pulled a blank.
Application, being careful.
Yeah. So, so the copper, it's very important to cover all your surfaces if you want it to work. And if it washes off, you put it back on. You spray it back on. Now, there's coppers that are OMRI, which means organic. That's an institute that certifies chemicals. And there's coppers that are not. So you look for the copper that says OMRI on it, or safe for organic gardens. So beware, though, there's some that aren't. And it'll put a blue, the copper's blue, and it'll, you know, your tomatoes will be blue. It washes right off. The other pesticide that works on tomatoes for leaf diseases is a product called Serenade. I talked about that earlier. And if you alternate Serenade with copper back and forth, you might get some control, you know, into September on your tomatoes.
Yeah.
What else would you say?
And you can do that regimen, but the weather might fight you the whole time, or it might dry out this summer and you might get to spray a little less. But weather is going to fight you on these sorts of things, because once it's washed off and the humidity's out and the moisture's out, you're gonna have to get out there and spray as soon as it's dry again, right? So
absolutely.
You know.
Last year, I think we had a really dry July, and I remember thinking, wow, there's not so much early blight yet. And then
one rainstorm.
It was dry, you know, and so the farmers look at actual. They can have forecasts online for diseases, and you can go online and you can see there's been so much of a wetting period. You're going to have a bloom, you know, you're going to have an inoculum. Fruit farmers definitely use that. I mean, for things on their apples, and I did a lot of work on apples, and we would always there's a statistical computer programs to tell you when to spray or when, you know, for your things. So basically it's about temperature, moisture, and time of year, light, all affects whether a fungus is going to germinate or not. The other thing, I'll just talk about degree days.
Yes, please.
Quickly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So there's something called degree days, planting degree days. And what that means is entomologists, insect people use it very frequently. what it is, it's a sort of the same statistical thing as you would use for the apples, but it takes into consideration what the temperature has been, what the sunlight has been, and how far along you are in the season. For instance, you could have your flea beetles come out much earlier one year than another if it's been warmer and the conditions have been different. So the interesting thing, though, I noticed was that when I found out that the potato beetles were out on May 26th when I first noticed them, and I looked and it was exactly May 26th last year. So we had about the same
Spring.
growing degree days, they're called. And you wouldn't have maybe thought that because maybe you had more, you can have ups and downs, but then it averages out into those kinds of things. So growing degree days are important.
Yeah.
Questions on the, yeah.
Not on the degree days, but with the fungus. So if you rotate crops, will that help avoid the fungal issues?
Well, crop rotation is only as good as the size of your farm. Now, if you have a 10 by 30 plot, yeah, I try to rotate. Like, I don't put my tomatoes in the same place, but you can't really separate them. The inoculum's still going to be in the soil, and all you need is a heavy rain to come down, and then the spores germinate. So yes, crop rotation here, it makes a difference. You've got a big enough space, but mainly if you've got a raised bed or something, it might make you feel better, but I don't know if it's gonna.
Rotate for sure. Bed to bed, even.
Yeah, do it.
Know?
Oh, bed to bed,
Yeah.
yes. But
it's worth it.
You know.
I mean, it's like anything. You can do all the things right, and the weather can.
And it isn't just for fungal diseases. The crop rotation. Different crops take different things out of the soil.
Good.
You know, I mean, different plants need different kinds of nutrients and are going to maybe change the pH a little bit or whatever. So, yeah, I mean, always do it, but it's not going to be your nirvana in a small area, I don't think.
Yeah, Bob.
Insect netting. You use insect netting. What is your insect netting?
Oh, I think it's good.
Bob
it's
just
good.
asked about insect
netting's
netting.
Great. I mean, or you can get row cover that's very light. Jeny sells that really very light row cover. It's a very effective way of doing it. It's labor intensive, and if you want your plants to pollinate, you're going to have to open it up periodically. And when you open it up periodically, what happens? They move back in. So yes, it's effective, but and it's probably one of the only. Now that I think about it, it's probably one of the only effective things for cucumbers beetles.
Oh,
if you can,
just keeping them out.
but I want to tell you, they're nasty little critters. They'll come in up above. They'll get in there, you know. But you may not get as many.
Yeah.
And so yes, and certainly for crops, growers of like arugula who grow mustards or arugula, they all use that for the flea beetles. It's very good for flea beetles because they can't, you know, get in and do that kind of thing.
I will add one, a little bit of story time and a little bit of just like wisdom for spray.
I didn't talk about kaolin, but.
Oh, well, the kaolin is a good one to talk about because of the cabbages, kales, anything in that brassica family. As soon as you put it out, everything likes to eat it when it's young, especially. And there's a product, this isn't it, it's called kaolin clay. So if you ever drive by our orchard and see the trees just completely white, that is kaolin clay. And all that does is it annoys the insects to all heck because they just want to clean themselves. So they get totally distracted and they get off your plant and start trying to get it off. So that's a really great one. In farming, people dip whole trays upside down in this stuff so that everything they're putting in is completely covered. So until that next rain, they're completely protected to grow out. I think there is a little effect on photosynthesis. Just that, how can it not be a little effect?
There would have to be.
Because you're putting a full coat of clay on the pores, right? So respiration. So I don't like to reapply, but giving it like a couple days to just get their feet under them, I think is effective.
Mainly the flea beetles it helps
Mainly
with.
the flea beetles. And with the apple trees, it's like a whole host of bugs they're keeping off. Aphids.
I don't know though. I don't know if you can get kaolin in a small amount, like I don't know.
It comes in huge bags.
Yeah, I know. 50. I mean, a lot of these things aren't. I don't think probably financially feasible for a small gardener. But if maybe it does now. A lot of these things that farmers use, big time farmers use, are now. You see smaller containers of it, but I don't know if they have kaolin or not.
That's one I haven't noticed because I don't look for it at the store, but
right.
Let us know if you find it. I, as a farmer, have to do a lot of observing and spotting, and so usually like Monday mornings, I spend like the first 15 minutes just walking in circles. Feels like a little, what am I doing? But I'm looking for damage, I'm looking for presence, I'm looking for poops, I'm looking for anything that looks amiss, and deciding what I'm gonna do about it. So there's a threshold of damage that I need to see before I wanna do a thing. Because I'm really I don't like spraying. It's not my favorite. I kind of try and avoid it. But when I have to, I have to. Last year, we almost lost an entire crop of kale, red Russian kale. We had 3 different types of kale. It liked that one. So I was getting ready to spray. I was out looking, spotting, and I just happened to notice that ladybug larva. And I looked again and a couple more ladybug larvae there, a little further, ladybug larva. I was like, I can't spray. I can't, because they are here. The ladybug is the predator to the aphid. And knowing what that larva looked like, which looks nothing like a ladybug, so I hope we find one for you guys to see, because if you can see those before you're going to spray, you won't need to spray. Because those ladybugs, every few days when I came back to check on that problem, there was twice as many larvae, and then the next time, all I saw was ladybugs, and every single plant had at least 4 larvae and 2 adults and a bunch of eggs laid. That entire crop bounced back like I'd never seen, and I was just like, yes, right? Because I didn't have to spray, nature balanced it out for me, and I got to just sit back in awe, right? It was the best. But you have to be paying attention to not only the negatives, but the positives. And, learn a little bit about entomology, because we're gonna go out in the field now and talk about a lot of the things we do to encourage the beneficials to come in. There's a lot of diversity out here, and we do some specific pest planting, pest control planting. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but I highly recommend finding plants for the insects and planting them as well around your garden, because if you can draw those in, your job gets easier and you get to sit back a little bit more and just enjoy.
We had a greenhouse, and I ordered ladybugs online and let them loose in our greenhouse, and it really did. It worked on our aphids, on the tomatoes. So
they're ravenous. If you look at them under a microscope, they're just like biting heads off of aphids and just like they're not as cute. All right. Does anybody have any questions? Because it's really cool out there, and I want to show you before we lose steam. It's like cool, right? It's like every time I'm coming, I'm like, what? Nothing, really? There's just compost. There's no amendments in these fields. I'm trying to do as little as possible to prove the point that you don't have to get crazy about this. You don't have to muscle with your NPK and get in over complication mode. There's compost and aeration and biology. The number one thing no-till encourages is the biology. So every time you till or flip or turn, you're disturbing this like ecosystem that's in this top 4 or 6 inches of soil that are helping your plants thrive. So literally underground, the mycelial, the mycorrhizal fungi, which is non-fruiting mycelium, so it's like the underground network that doesn't actually like give us the fruit we like to eat, but it's still very much part of that kingdom. It holds on to the ends of a root hair like they're holding hands. And they trade sugars for minerals and moisture. So the mycelium has a network, thousands of miles of like network underneath us, right? 1 tablespoon of soil has like 4 miles of mycelial network in it. Just imagine if you like run it out. So the roots can't get very far very fast, right? They're kind of on this linear path, right? But the mycelium's way over there where there's a ton of moisture, or it's attached to this rock over here that's breaking down the limestone to bring a nutrient into a bioavailable form for that plant. So they are literally mated at the root hair at some points, trading, the plant's giving sugars and the mycelium's giving nutrients and water. Isn't that the coolest thing? Like, and the more we do the no-till, the more I'm a believer. Because like, this is cool. Like, just how, like, it's not that I'm surprised, but it's like, I get excited when things work the way you want them to and the way your research and knowledge base tells you it's going to. But it's so satisfying to see the results. So don't overcomplicate it. It's like one of my favorite things.
They're amazing, isn't it? Isn't this astounding? I mean,
Oh,
it
yeah,
is
yeah.
really,
Oh,
really
yeah.
astounding.
Good.
I mean,
So
I'm no
these,
slouch in the garden, so I can attest
Hey, you
that
gotta
this
go
is
away.
astounding.
so yeah, pay attention to somebody else. So you'll notice all the way down on both sides of the field, we have Alyssium and we have marigolds planted. They're aesthetically pleasing, but they're here for way different reasons. The marigold is a deterrent and the Alyssium is an attractant. So a lot of our pollinators are not honeybees. I repeat, a lot of our pollination is not happening via honeybees. The Save the Pollinators movement has kind of been co-opted by beekeepers. That's not actually what we're trying to save when we say save the bees. We're saving all the little bee flies, all the bumblebees, all the things that actually do more of our pollination on this side of the world, right? We don't have almond groves, that's bees, right? They move those to pollinate certain trees, but here, honeybees aren't the real champion. So the Alyssium brings these little flies and wasps and things that eat and lay eggs on caterpillars and just bite heads off aphids and things. So having them often and having them spread out on both sides of the garden gives me just like walls of potential nesting and egg laying space for my beneficials, and ideally some deterrents for the bunnies and certain things. But even though this is really strong, like marigolds you always smell, right? They're really strong scented above and below. And so they can help with some nematode stuff, but even the slugs ate these. So we had to replant these marigolds twice already. Luckily we had enough.
And they're annuals, right?
And these are annuals. And they both tend to self-seed. Like we have piles of Alyssium coming up in weird places and little marigolds popping up. This is mugwort. This is what this field was when we got here. And it's one of the hardest weeds to just see completely disappear, because anytime you chop it into a little piece, it's a new plant and it thrives. So this is pretty much the weed that we're fighting here all the time, and it ain't that bad.
It's over there too, in the
Yeah.
community garden.
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
by mulching, putting the
So we had the tarp down, and then all of the disturbance and loosening. Weeds will actually decide they don't like your soil anymore.
Excuse me.
The other cool thing about the
I
forest
better get going.
is that it tends to be less acidic.
I think my work is.
Sorry. Yeah, more alkaline than say a farm field. Farm fields tend to be very acidic because the biology isn't balancing out that. And so the closer you get to forest soil, the weeds don't even like it here. We have aesthetic choices we get to make here, and that's really nice. So like lettuce is a gorgeous brush to paint with. These trellises, so one of the ways we got 5,000 pounds out of this 1/4 acre was things like this. So we grow up as much as humanly possible, and we intercrop. So if you notice the peas, they're fixing nitrogen into the ground for those kales. And so when when the peas are done, we're just going to cut them down, pull the trellises, and then that kale is just left to dominate. So that kale is our anchor crop, is what I call it. And so we do several rounds of crops in every single bed so that we get that density. So in this bed, we're gonna have onions, lettuce, tomatoes, basil, and then who knows what in the fall. So that's a 5 crop rotation in one bed, right? And so these onions are gonna be hanging out till they're ready and done, right? They're just there. They're making a pretty border. They're kind of honestly, onions can be a really helpful pest deterrent because they are so scented. So things that are really strong scented are called aromatic pest confusers, and they're really helpful to stick around, which is why the marigolds are like helpful, right? Because they're just stinky. So the idea is that smell is eliminating the other tasty smells for the insects to catch, right? Sort of like an, what do they call that? I don't know. Does anybody have any questions about intercropping or sort of, Jennifer?
What can you intercrop with strawberries?
Honestly, I use strawberries as a border plant everywhere. I like them with everything because they're my favorite.
But there's not a plant that you would avoid putting it next to where they're not harmonious.
So soil similarities. So strawberries really do prefer an acidic soil. So, I would put them with families that they like. But the way I grow them, my home garden is shaped like a leaf. And so they're just all around the edge. And they just kind of walk around. I don't replant them. I just let them replant themselves, kind of binging back and forth. And they're just, I don't know. I don't fuss with stuff very much. Tomatoes Love Carrots is one of my all-time favorite books. I love that woman. She's like a wealth of knowledge. There's a perennial section. There's an annual herb medicinal section. So if you get that book, it's like you could cross-reference yourself all day on what to plant. You can get overwhelmed with the back and forth, but there's some principles that you can really tend to get. And carrots and tomatoes and basil and tomatoes, those are sort of ones that really like each other. My other favorite book I think everybody should own is Good Bug, Bad Bug. It's like the ultimate reference guide. It's how I came to the conclusion of these are the 2 plants I'm gonna plant. There's a whole bunch that could encourage a lot of things, but these were the 2 that seemed to cross-reference enough species that I was like, all right, this is dense enough for me to feel like this is my crop to help.
Good bug, bad bug?
Good Bug, Bad Bug. And it's color pictures, waterproof, and so these will have the cherry tomatoes growing up them this year. Last year tomatoes were in this field. They're in this field. Everything got rotated once. So we only have 4 fields, so we got to rotate somewhat. We'll go down here, talk about tomato and planting, pruning, all the good tomato-ness now. By the time I give these guys a week, they're starting to acclimate to the soil they're in, and they're getting stronger and stronger, and they come to grow out diseases sometimes because their immune system is getting cranked being in this soil. They're just starting to mate with that mycelium, they're starting to get their feet under them, and then I can almost relax a little bit, but with this moisture we're having, I'm gonna be spraying every couple days for the rest of the summer, which isn't fun. We planted some as an example. This is sort of our style of planting. We do a weave setup, which we'll show you before you leave, so you kind of have a sense of how we tie these up and keep them vertical. Again, we interplant.
What do you spray them with?
So earlier in the class, we covered all of the sprays and stuff.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We're filming it, so it'll be on YouTube pretty quick. And last year's is on there, and we did cover it as well. So if you want a reference, or check our YouTube, definitely. So one thing is we planted these. I didn't prune them because I wanted you guys to be here to see what's going on. So any leaf touching the ground or mulch at this point has got to go. So we came over here and we got this. We pretty much gone, but even this one, I would take off. This is a great example of what not to do. Use scissors so you don't create a giant scar like I just did. Do as I say, not as I do, you know. And then so these ones, these are automatically going to get blighted. Like this, so even though that I am mulched pretty heavy here, there's still a little bit, and I will even mulch this row heavier. Because any bit of splash up, like Warren was saying, this little bit of exposed soil, that'll do it. So this should be mulched tighter, and these lower leaves gotta go. Because anything touching the ground is going to be a mess. And so we're doing this the whole time, all season long. We're pruning up, and especially at the beginning, like aggressively pruning up, because anything that's down there is going to help spread that disease, and you want to keep as much leaf away from the ground as possible. Tomatoes handle the pruning.
Do you mulch close to the stem?
Yeah, real close. Real close. Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. I invite you guys to get into these rows and start touching the soil and kind of feeling it, because, I mean, let's see how far I can go. Oh, it's still going. Yes. Okay. Not bad. Not bad. That's cool. That was not like that 2 years ago. Definitely not like that last year. So, yes, this is it. So, this is the good stuff. So, we fuss all the time with mulch, and it's like annoying, and I hate that we do it, but it's worth it. So, we mulch all the time, and we unmulch and remulch and then mulch again. So, it seems a little fussy, but I promise it's been worth it. The other beautiful thing about being a no-till farm is the critters. Yesterday we had a toad and a garter snake. We've had baby painted turtles. We've had every species of frog and snake you can have. There was a snapping turtle laying its eggs over there the other day, or today actually, Ron found. And if we were tilling, they wouldn't be here. So it's just a really nice ecosystem. And I have less slugs because of those frogs. So every time we find a frog, we put him in the middle of the field. You know, be like, you live here now. Yeah, exactly. When we are playing with soil around the mulch, I'm like, hey, try not to get the soil on the mulch, because that's where the weed seeds are. And so we're trying to be a little tidy, not fussy too much, but you don't need to loosen it up crazy, but it's pretty loose as it is. Our rule of thumb here with composting, we use really good compost at the beginning for the starts. So that's why they get a good start there. And so you see they're not really, it's not white. It's not been in the pot too long. It's loose. There's a little, a little too much there. But this is great, perfect, ready to go in, right? This is what you want. You don't want it overly root bound. So our timing is pretty good this year, Nina. We did it. So, I mean, my personal rule of thumb is we've already composted these beds, but this is a heavy feeding crop. We're not slacking on compost with these guys. Oh, piece of hair in my mouth. They're lettuces. We do the beds, we compost, and then we just plant right in. We're not adding extra compost because they're not heavy feeders. They're not even gonna be there that long. But with tomatoes, you gotta give them the juice they want to get their legs under them. So a scoop of compost in the hole the equivalent size of the pot. It just makes it easier for everybody, and it's like, oh yeah, we always do the same pot size, add it in the bottom. So I like to make sure that's mixed. And then what I'm gonna do is prune now. And I'm gonna bury this sucker as deep as I can, because all of these nodes, once they're under soil, will be signaled to form roots. So I could go like this if I wanted to. I could go sideways if I wanted to, but I'm not going to. So when they're more root bound, you wanna really loosen them up. You even wanna crack the bottoms open if they're root bound, but I am not gonna do that because it's too nice. It's like a little roll, a little massage maybe, but you don't need to fuss with them much because they're perfect. If they're root bound, definitely massage them open and stimulate them to grow. You're gonna bury them over. This is a root from a bok choy that came out on Wednesday. We did 260 pounds of bok choy out of this field on Wednesday to make way for this. So this field has already seen a harvested crop. It's pretty cool.
And donated.
And donated to the Falmouth Service Center.
And enjoyed by the client.
Mm-hmm. I think it even went to the base, he
Yeah,
said.
I went to the base, and I got a report that the base just went crazy.
Fresh produce for the pantries. And then the next rule of thumb is you always top dress. So every little rainstorm, they get a little compost tea, drizzles down on their roots. Also helps keep the weed down near their base, because if you have good finished compost, you shouldn't have weeds growing here, right? Because this is like a mulch. You don't want to leave it, you want to mulch over this mulch because it'll dry out. It gets crumbly and gross, and it's just not going to hold any of that bacteria or mycelium. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah.
You talked about planting the tomato deeper. Can you do that with peppers too?
No, but you can do it with eggplant. Okay. No. Well, what did we look up, Nina? There was the one thing we were questioning, whether you could bury it the same. What was it? Peppers are a no. They don't bury as well.
I think eggplant's a no.
What did we look up the other day? You could. It was the tomatillos. You were here. That's right. Yeah. So exactly. So tomatillos will grow nodes and roots as well. You can bury those a little bit better. Try and be clean with your prunings. I have not been. There's like a pile sitting somewhere. But you just want to get these out of your field. Treat these like they're poison. Don't put them in your compost.
Oh.
I know. So you're basically just, unless you hot compost, you are just spreading this on your whole garden. So unless you get the heat to kill it, you're basically bringing blight into your soil compost.
No hoogling on tomatoes.
Huh?
No hoogling are weeds from the garden, or prunings from the garden.
I mean, if you bury them deep enough and never turn them in, so I just would recommend, some people put these literally in the trash, like they just bag them and trash them. I have a hard time not composting things that can be composted, but this is just one of the things to keep biosecurity wise. Any other questions?
How do you make that compost?
I do not make compost. It is really hard to make good compost. This is from Black Earth Compost, which is like they're local, and do you need me?
Some of this is in the compost, so if you want to show what the mugwort
Oh,
looks
yeah.
like, just in case people find it.
Yeah.
Black Earth compost.
Sorry, Black Earth Compost. They pick up compost curbside, and now have a place in Wareham. So they'll be having compost cheaper, closer soon. So by next spring, you should be able to order Black Earth and not have it. Like, I can only get it here because I order 18 yards at a time and get a $600 delivery truck. So it's a $1,500 compost delivery, but it's that much compost, you know? So with them, if you compost with them, they give you a bag, I think, every year of your own compost. And you can set up neighborhood, like if you and your neighbor wanted to go in on some compost together. But they'll do smaller quantities next year, is what I'm saying.
can you get something similar to it at the, like, stores or different places? Like
Yeah.
a bag of something like,
Yeah.
what is it, Coast of Maine, something or other?
Yeah, Coast of Maine, Vermont compost is great. Vermont compost is what we use for our starts in the greenhouse. You can get a lot of those at Soares, Mahoney's. Progressive Grower is a place in Wareham that a lot of the farmers go, and you can actually go and buy bigger bags of stuff, so it's, you know, less bags, but that's a good method if you only have a small garden.
There's like so many different kinds of compost.
There is, and I, like always, my answer will always be diversity. So get 3, if you don't decide, just get one of everything. That's gonna make it better, right? Because a little of this, a little of that, they make their compost with this, they make their compost with that. Now you have a more diverse, you know, biology going on in your soil, which is good. We're gonna see if anybody wants to like get in and help us plant a little bit. I want to show you that there are these little white hairs coming into the compost. That is the mugwort trying to climb up through the compost. They're bleached out because they're not in sun. If you see these, try not to leave it in the hole. Just put it in the walkway, it'll cook itself and dry out, but just be aware of that. Questions before we get into action?
Just a quick question about amending.
Yeah?
Things like tomato tone or manure, like composted manure. Do you want to mix that into your compost first
Yeah.
and then add? Or
Yeah. So
burn?
the one fertilizing I do in this field is I spray fish emulsion or like tomato tone, not the organic version. I usually do the fish emulsion or fish brew, the stinky stuff, right? And so I come through with a sprayer every week and a half with fertilizer. But when we're planting, I don't do a ton, but you can. You can put a lot in, and I would do it when you're planting. So you want to kind of, in that compost in the hole, that's where you want to put it around the roots, not necessarily on top. Yeah, tomato tone's great.